Thank you everyone for joining our first ever TMR Kopi session, which is hosted by TMR runners and the admin teams. We have all the admins who are actually sitting down here, and I will actually let them introduce themselves. As for myself, my name is Vijayan, and I'm one of the admin guys and a very slow runner for all your information, right? So with that said, let me pass over to who can I call now? I'll see Rama here smiling and shaking his head. Rama, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi everybody. Just like what Vijayan said, I'm one of the admins, and I'm very glad to be part of this group for the last 3 years, or almost 3 years. So apart from that, I also belong to the same category as Vijayan, slow runner. Okay, I'll pass on to the next better player, Isharan.
Hi everyone, my name is Iswaran. I hope everyone's doing well. I suppose I fit into the category of slow runner as well. But I mean, we all run to enjoy ourselves, and I suppose that's what this running group is about. So look forward to the sharing session. So I'll pass it on to Indran.
Hi, all. I'm Indran, one of the admins. We have 5, or rather, 6 actually. Well, I'm not sure what category I am, so I'm very
Super
excited.
Category. Morning, Colonel.
Morning, Captain. I'm very excited to learn more in this session about HR. So, over to Ramesh.
Hi everyone, morning. Thanks for joining us. Been part of the TMR team now for about 3 years. I think I joined officially in July 2017, so it's coming to about 3 years. I think TMR has been very close to my heart, big part of my life. I think if not for TMR, the circuit breaker period would be a lot harder, I think. It's helped get through this difficult period, this group, amazing bunch of people. Very glad to be a part of it, and this initiative as well, first thing that we've come up with. We're trying to keep this going. We might do a few more sessions over the next few weeks as well. So glad to have you all on board. Today is really just meant to be a sharing session on the topic, but we'll get to that shortly. But hand you over to our lady admin, Gauri.
Hi everyone, Gauri. I'm the baby among the admins. I've been an active member of Tarumara for about 2 years, and like what Ramesh said, Tarumara has evolved to become a very integral part of my life. And yes, I look forward to today's session as well. Okay, over to you, Ramesh.
Okay, guys. So today's topic is about the heart rate method of running. How was this topic selected? For those of you that are active on the Facebook page, you will see that over the past few weeks, many people have been posting their runs and have been talking about how they have been keeping to a low average heart rate during their runs. So I think that's piqued some interest amongst the runners, and we've been getting questions, even messages privately from various runners about this heart rate method of running. And we thought rather than fielding the queries on an ad hoc basis, we thought it would be good to get all of us on a platform. Zoom naturally is the platform of choice now, where we can talk about this broadly. The heart rate method is actually a training methodology that has been around for a couple of years. And really, what this when this was introduced, this was a bit of a game changer in the running scene. Basically, what this method of running does is that it basically forces you to throw away this adage, which is no pain, no gain. So a lot of us, when we first start training, we've been told that no pain, no gain. So you got to work hard, put in the hours, run strong, run far, run hard in order to improve. Now, this training methodology departs from that in a big way. This actually trains your aerobic system without actually stressing your skeletal and your muscular system. Okay, so other methods of training heart actually work your muscular system and your skeletal system. This one is very foundational. It focuses on building your aerobic base. Okay, so imagine your heart is your aerobic engine. This method of running actually focuses on building that aerobic base first. So the proponents of this particular method of running actually will tell you that when you are starting to train on this method, forget about speed, forget about running fast, forget about watching your pace as you run. The focus is really to build up your heart, right? As you know, when you run, your heart beats and pumps oxygen to your various parts of your body, your muscles, pumps oxygen. This method of running basically trains your heart, all right? It tames your heart. Over time, the idea is you're going to get fitter and stronger and be able to go at longer endurance runs. Okay, so that's broadly what this method of running entails. The whole idea is to run slow in order to run fast in time to come. All right. So if you talk about heart rate, then the next question is, okay, what heart rate should I be running at? All right. There's some science behind this. I don't really know how that science was derived. I mean, these are experts in the field, people who have been training athletes. They've come up with this particular formula for calculating what is known as your maximum aerobic heart rate. And the formula that they have come up with is 180, the number 180, minus your age, right? That gives you your maximum aerobic heart rate. And then if you minus 10 from that, then you've got a zone of some sort. So I'll give you an example. So I'm 41 this year. And if you take 180 minus that comes to about 139. All right. And if you minus 10 of that, you've got 129 to 139. That's the target heart rate zone that you should be running at for most of your runs. So the purists will say that when you are starting on this method, you should almost exclusively run at this zone. Okay, so as I said, 180 minus your age, that's your maximum aerobic heart rate. And then you minus 10, you've got a zone of some sort. You run almost exclusively within that particular zone. So what that means is when you start a run, you're no longer focused on your pace. So if you've got a smartwatch, okay, so we come back to how do you monitor your heart rate, right? We've been talking about how do you arrive at that zone. Now we ask ourselves, how do you monitor your heart rate? Naturally, you need a heart rate monitor. So for those of you on a Garmin watch like this or any other smartwatch which allows you to monitor your heart rates, you can use that. There's also a chest strap monitor. Sometimes you're running in the parks. You see, it's particularly popular with the Angmos. You see them running topless with a strap across their chest. That's a chest strap heart rate monitor. You can use that as well. Naturally, a chest strap is going to be a lot more accurate because the heart rate monitor is right next to your heart. The watch is not all that far off. You can use that, and that basically tracks your the number of heartbeats per minute. So that is how you track your heart rate. If you've got a smartwatch, the suggestion is to when you're on your run, to basically sort of plan your watch face or set it to show two things: time and heart rate. Right? You can also set pace if you want, but to me, I find that somewhat distracting. When you're training on the heart rate method, you're going to, I think, derive most benefit if you just set it to pace and time. And assuming you're going to be running or you set yourself up to run for about 30 minutes or so, go out for 30 minutes and make sure you're running within that zone that we talked about earlier. And try to stick within the middle of that zone. Okay, so as you're running, you'll find when you first start out on this, your heart is untamed. So you're going to see your heart rate spike. It's going to jump. Perfectly normal, perfectly okay. What you should be doing is when you see your heart rate spiking, you're going to have to force yourself to slow down. Okay, when I say slow down, sometimes you slow down and your heart rate drops a little, but it still may not be within that zone. Don't worry about it. It may mean that when you're first starting out, you may have to walk even as well. Doesn't matter at all. I mean, one of the first things I was told by a coach when I started on this was you got to leave your ego at the doorstep when you're starting on this method of running. You're going to have uncles and aunties at the parks overtake you when you're running. You need to get used to it. It's perfectly normal, but you're going to have to keep at this for some time to come. So it could take 3 months for some, 6 months, maybe even longer for some, but you're going to derive maximum benefit if you're going to be running exclusively or 90% if at all on this particular method of running. You're going to find that if you keep within that zone consistently, so if you're doing ideally you should be doing a minimum of 3 runs a week. You're going to really see some benefit out of this method. I would recommend, if you can afford the time, I know it's circuit breaker now, so I think we all have the time. So 4 runs a week should not be a problem. But when it gets back to normality, I think at the very least 3 runs a week, you should be doing, ideally, if you ask me, all 3 runs in this method. And you keep at this, you will find that over time, at the same heart rate, when you start looking at the pace that you were running at, you're going to find that you are running faster and faster. So when you're on the run, my suggestion is don't look at your pace, just go on heart rate and time. But post the run, when you're syncing and looking at the metrics and the stats, look at the pace that you are running at as an average, and then compare that month on month. You should be seeing improvements. So for instance, on average heart rate of say 125, in month 1 you look at your pace and you're hovering around 8 minutes or so. You will find that over time, if you stick to this method religiously, in 2-3 months, that same heart rate of 120 something or so, you will find your average pace actually go up significantly. Okay, what that means is your aerobic capacity, your aerobic engine has actually developed. You've got the cardiovascular base built up. You're going to be able to run a lot more comfortably. So this method of running actually is low intensity. It prevents injury. And it's a great foundational way to train. Okay? For most of us who are amateur runners, this is a great way to train. The athletes, the strict athletes, will tell you that this is not something that you can stick to, right? Because if you're going to be racing and you're going to be running at high intensity, naturally part of your training must also include high intensity workouts, all right? But for us, we're all beginners, amateur runners. You want to be able to build that aerobic base first. So if you are doing this heart rate method and you are mixing in interval running at high speed, you're going hard on 1 or 2 days in a week in training, you're going to find that upsets your training, all right? Because as I said, you got to build that aerobic base first before you add speed in. Okay, so imagine you're building a house. Speed is the furniture that comes in after your house is built. Okay, if you are starting to bring in furniture as you're building your house, you're going to have a very messy setup. So just bear that in mind. It's simple science. Once you build the aerobic base, speed can come in at that point in time, intervals, and so on. When you get to that stage where your aerobic base has been built, where you can comfortably go out and do a comfortable 5K, comfortable 10K in 70, 75 minutes, and your heart rate is 120 or less, then that's a sign to you that you are now at the stage where you can take it up a notch and include interval or high intensity running. Even at that stage, you should still keep to this foundational method of running at your heart rate, maximum heart rate, aerobic heart rate. But you can then work in once a week or twice a week what we call interval runs or tempo runs as such. A tempo runs means running hard for a particular period of time to get your body used to racing. Okay, for most of us, as I said, we may not need to do that. You want to be able to run comfortably for longer. This is a great way of building that aerobic base. As I said, if you keep at this, you're going to find yourself less tired after runs. You're going to find yourself less tired after runs. You're going to have feel like at the end of a run that you've got a lot more energy to carry on, to go on if you so wish. And your recovery as well, the next day and so on, is going to be much better. Right? So assuming you're starting on a plan right now, and I've told you ideally you want to do 3 times a week, you could do a short 30-minute on one day, 45 minutes on another day. Ideally, as part of this method, once a week you want to try and clock in a longer run as well. Okay, when I talk about long runs, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about distance. One of the things that science has taught us is that our bodies don't know distance. Okay, so if you run 10K, your body doesn't know that you run 10K. Your body only recognizes the time that you've been running. Okay, so for instance, if you run for an hour, your body recognizes that as a 1 hour workout. Your body doesn't recognize the mileage that is translated or quantified from that 1 hour workout. So don't worry about starting a run and saying I'm going to run 10K today or 15K today. Rather, you should be setting yourself in the mindset where you're talking about time. I'm going to go on an hour's run. Get yourself used to running over an hour at that particular heart rate. Keep doing that. You'll find that in 3 months, an hour's run at that heart rate would be easy peasy. Your heart's conditioned, it's tamed, it's going to be a lot more comfortable running. And when you hit that degree of comfort, then you're going to be able to do an hour and a half comfortably. And if you do that, and over an hour and a half, you'll then find that you have enough of energy to go on for further as well. So ideally, if you're going to be training for half marathon or a full marathon, this is a great foundational way to train, to give you that base to be able to clock that sort of mileage. Ultimately, if you are aiming to run a marathon, your body has to be able to run continuously for 4 or 5 hours at a go, comfortably at that as well. Now, the good thing about this method of training as well, you'll find that it burns fat a lot better as well. And it's going to prevent you from bonking at the end of longer endurance runs. So you'll find that a lot of us, when we run anything beyond 10K, 15K or so, when we get to the end of that distance, we almost feel like we're breaking down. And I'm sure you've seen races where at the end of a marathon, people, you see their legs just go under them, right? You will not experience that if you are consistently training on this heart rate method, where you're constantly running within that particular heart rate zone as such. So that's broadly what I wanted to say about heart rate. The other thing I did want to say is that, of course, there are some things that affect your heart rates on a daily basis as well. So things like if you've had too much of caffeine, if it's typically a terribly hot day. Also, what matters is the time of the day that you run as well. If you're out and about later in the day, or when it's particularly hot as well, you will find that your heart rate is affected. If you haven't had enough sleep the day before or a few days prior, that's going to affect your heart rate as well. You're recovering from a flu, cold as well, that's going to affect your heart rate as well. So just be mindful of that. You might see a spike in your heart rates and so on, perfectly normal, all right? But try to keep at that heart rate zone as much as you can. Obviously, if you're recovering from a flu or whatever, then ideally you should be perhaps at the lower end of that heart rate zone, as I mentioned, 180 minus your age, which is the maximum, then minus 10 from there, you've got a zone. Try to keep to between the middle and the lower end of that zone. You'll be fine, right? So so this ideology really is running slow to run fast. It's breaking the earlier notion that you got to be training hard and that without suffering pain, you're not going to suffer. You're not going to actually gain from your training as well. So it's a game changer, but hugely beneficial. I started on this about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and now I can actually come out and say that my running is really quite comfortable. This needs to obviously be complemented with your strength training, right? So obviously, whatever training that you've been doing, you're working your core, your legs, your quads, nothing changes. That carries on. Ideally, if you're doing that and doing this method of running as well, you're going to find yourself become a lot stronger, better runner as such. So that's broadly what I had wanted to say and share. I thought it would be useful to also have one of our runners, Thiru, who's on as well, share with us. He's been training on this method for some time now as well, and he's a runner who is, I think, if you guys have been watching and noticing his runs, he's improved tremendously. I think running a half marathon weekly is really extremely comfortable for him. If you look at the mileage he's clocking weekly now, we've been trying to tell him to slow things down because he's easily clocking in excess of 100k a week, rather comfortably at that as well. So I thought it would be useful to just get Thiru to just share with us how he started on this and how he's benefited from this method of running. Thiru?
Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Can't hear you, Thiru.
You know?
Yes, okay.
Okay. As Ramesh said, initially when I started to run about 2 years ago with Ramesh, the whole TMR team, I was not even able to complete 5K. So I was struggling to even to finish a 5K run. So that's when Ramesh kind of advised me that why don't you try to engage yourself into heart rate training where you don't hurt yourself and you can continue and extend your distance. So I started off with a very slow pace, but of course it was very demoralizing at the initial stage because you can never, or basically can't make a speed where people will be overtaking you and you will be going at a very, very slow pace. And it was very tough to adapt to that continuous training. And it does give a bit of motivational and within yourself to endure and just continue the run progressively. So I started off with 5K, then slowly I move on to 10K, and progressively I did a half marathon with that concept. So my main idea was just to maintain at a heart rate and not irregardless of the pace. So slowly, as I move on, a couple of months and years, as what Ramesh mentioned, the same distance, I was able to go at a faster pace, but at a lower rate. And even I finished the distance, I don't feel very tired. And that's one of the things why it makes me run for the next day. I still have the energy and I still can do at a faster pace. So I sincerely think everybody can do it and just focus on the pace and not on focus on the heart rate and not on the pace at all. I think most of us are using Garmin watch, or these smartwatches, when we are training for this heart rate, I think we should, in my experience, I convert it into heart rate mode and forget about the pacing and the timing. And it does create a lot of psychological effect during the run.
Okay.
There's still a lot. Yeah, go ahead, Ramesh.
Yeah, no, Thiru.
No, that's it. Thanks, and I hope you guys can do it as well. I'm sure you guys can do it. No problem.
Yeah. But the other thing I just wanted to say is that if you start on this method, you've got to trust the system. You've got to trust the science behind this. Patience is key. You've got to go at it, as I said, for a good number of months before you're going to see a real improvement in your aerobic base as such. You will find, though, that as Thiru said, sometimes your ego takes a bit of a hit. You may lose motivation when you're running and you're not used to running slowly. Your ego takes a bit of a bruising, and then you may feel tempted to get back to your faster and runs. Right? You might try and sneak in a faster run just to feel good about yourself. Now the problem with that is that it then upsets the training. All right, so the science behind this is you've got to be patient, you've got to go at it diligently, and most of your weekly runs, if you're running 3 or 4 times a week, most of that should be on this method as such. As you get better and better, you can then bring in speed work once, maybe twice a week. But for those of us, we call ourselves couch to 5K, couch to 10K runners, or maybe even slightly longer runners. It pays to exclusively train on this at the start, and then when you've got that base, you can then start toggling a little bit and working in speed workouts. Now, once you get to that phase where you've got that aerobic base and you're looking to become a stronger, better runner, then there are 3 types of runs that you should almost you should ensure that you work in to your weekly routine. The first of all is speed workouts, speed interval runs. That should be a must once a week at the very least. Then next, what we call tempo running, where you're running at a much faster, higher heart rate, consistently over a longer period, and that really depends. The length of your tempo run really depends on the type of race or type of run that you are sort of hoping to train for. So if you're looking to train for a half marathon, you should be looking to run a tempo run perhaps between 10 to 12, 13, 14K perhaps, where you're running hard for that period. You're training your body to run consistently over a sustained period. So intervals, speed intervals, where you're working to create what we call your fast twitch muscle fibers, right, to give you that burst as you're running. And then your tempo runs, where you're training your heart to run hard for a longer period of time. And then finally, your slow, long runs. So, on our page, you see a lot of us posting what we call LSD runs, long, slow distance runs. Okay, that's the abbreviation, acronym, LSD runs. Okay, so you got to go at it slowly and far as well. So that's also, again, part of building that aerobic base, getting your body used to you being on your feet for a long period of time, right? So when you build that aerobic base through this heart rate method, and you're at a stage where you can take it to the next level, then you should be looking to ensure that as part of your training, you've got these 3 runs in a week properly locked down as part of your training regimen. Speed intervals, tempo runs, and a long, slow distance run. If you work these 3 in, you're going to find yourself becoming a much, much better runner. I know runners who, once they've reached a certain level, only do these 3 runs in a week. So there's no need to even run more than that. If you just, as a minimum, have these 3 runs in a week, you're going to find yourself becoming a much stronger runner as well. Yeah, Indran? Anything you want to share as well, Indran?
Oh no. I mean, I'm also just starting out. Maybe just a quick experience. I initially also thought that I was in fact doing a heart rate run, but I realized I wasn't, because my heart rate was at the 140, 142 type of range. So when I spoke to Ramesh, he said it's actually not heart rate, because it needs to be at your below the ceiling. That's what he explained earlier about minusing your age or over the maximum heart rate, 180. So if you understand where's your ceiling, and then you should keep your run below the ceiling, and that would mean that you're doing the 100 runs. I mean, that's what I have to add. I think the point about ego and all, I think don't worry about it. I mean, it's all what we always say. It's about yourself, getting better. So you know what's the larger intent of this, which is you getting better. So it doesn't matter if an old man, if you're a guy, some girl run past you, don't worry about all that. You know what is the larger picture, for yourself. So just keep at it. Enjoy it. I must say that I'm enjoying my runs for the past 2 weeks more, a little bit more, right? And true of what Thiru said, because the next day I'm not so like I'm hit by a bus or anything like that. I'm fine. I'm ready to go again. So it's getting fun. So you all should try it and enjoy the run.
Rama?
Hi. Yeah, I also tried heart rate running much earlier. I mean, I only got one thing to say. I mean, we all are at different points in our running journey. As a matter of fact, even much earlier when I didn't have my Garmin watch, right? I mean, of course, you can't do anything without the Garmin watch. So when I first got my Garmin watch, I was very overwhelmed by everyone in the group, because everyone was talking in language that I didn't understand. To some of y'all today also, certain things will be very difficult to understand, maybe overwhelming. It is still overwhelming for me when these guys talk this way, but one step at a time. So I also did the same thing. So I just was curious about what is heart rate running, and like what everyone else said, you may tend to walk most of the time. So I don't know much. So I just picked up on what my heart rate should be and what is the right number. So I think someone told me at that point in time was 120 plus. So I just tried to keep it at 120 plus, within 120 to 130, and I just run, and then you jog, and then you walk, like whatever the rest of them said. So you just keep doing it, like, eventually you are conditioning your heart. Or that's what I think you're doing, right, Ramesh?
Yes. I mean, the other thing I will say is that this we're no experts in this. In this, we've tried this out, some of us at least, and it seems like it's working. There's a lot of literature on this out there on the web, so we encourage you, after this session, to actually go and read up about this method of running as well. If it does make sense for you, and you want to try it, then you should give it a go. This method that I've been talking about, the formula where we are working out this zone, is a rough way of going about it. There are ways where you can actually chart your heart rate zones as well, right? If you go and read the literature, it tells you how you can do it. What I've shared with you is a broad way of coming at that zone, and you can run pretty much comfortably at that zone for most of your runs as such. But if you're interested in actually charting your heart rate zones, and we talk about zones from zones 1 to 5, you can actually do an actual test where you get onto a treadmill and you are running at different speeds, and every 5 minutes or so they actually prick your finger and take a small blood sample from you, and they actually are testing lactate. I mean, basically the buildup of lactic acid in your blood, And based on that, they actually chart the heart rate zones for you. That zone that I've been talking about is what we would call zone 2, where you're running at 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate as such. So if you're interested in actually getting a test done, there are places where you can go to actually get it done, where you can chart your heart rate zones. But otherwise, what we've just shared is a good enough way of working out what your zone 2 is, and you can run based on that zone as such. I see that Jerry is also on the chat. I think Jerry is also someone that subscribes to this method of running, and I thought it would be useful for Jerry also perhaps to say a few things. Jerry?
Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing? Good.
Great, Jerry. Great.
Yeah, I mean, I started with heart rate training, I think last year, was it, Ramesh? I think, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I started last year. So, because there was a very short time frame before Chicago. So my coach, of course I have a coach, and then he immediately put me on the heart rate training, and we had to work out a plan so that I could manage my runs and complete Chicago Marathon within 5:30, if I'm not wrong. I think the intention was to come in sub 5 and then to try to finish the race without any injury. So initially, like what Ramesh, Tiru, and everyone has shared, it is a very it hits your ego really badly. Especially for me, it really hit me badly, because for the first 2 weeks when I ran out and really slow down my pace, it was really, really very difficult, because I would see an old man pass by and I'm like, why is he running faster than me? And I can't increase my speed. And there would be days that I would have to walk instead of run, because I just want to bring my heart rate down. But eventually, after a period of being very consistent and having that mindset that I really want to do this, because I saw the benefits in Ramesh. I really knew, and I know of other runners who are also doing this, and they are really doing very well in their run. So I really wanted this to work. So with that being said, I put my ego aside and then pursued this and went on with the training. Of course, my coach would tell me, be patient, Geraldine. You will get there. Just be patient. Because I would just, text him every now and then and say, what are you asking me to do? And why do I have to like run so slowly? But the beauty of it all is that, like what Rami said, I think I'm a testament to what he says, because how it has helped me in my Chicago Marathon is that usually, I'm not sure whether you have heard about hitting the wall in a bonk area. So usually people will have hit the wall at 38. Some even hit it earlier. But mine was only at 41. And that's when I wanted to give up. And I knew that I only had 1.5 km left and I had to finish the race. And the last 700 meters, I could actually pick up my speed and dash across, which is a testament that heart rate training is really, really very, very useful. And it really prevents injury. That's what is the beauty of it. And you would notice that, I don't know about you, Ramesh, but I noticed this. So I think those of you who are following me would notice that every week, like Tiru, I'm clocking in 20 km every week. And the recovery period for that, usually if it's not running at a heart rate, it would be like 2 or 3 days. But the recovery period is that day itself. That's how fast your body recovers. So the science behind it, like what Rami said, is really very, very true. And I swear by it now. But with that being said, another pointer I think I'll add on with what Ramesh has mentioned it is not only about focusing on runs, but also strength exercises. I think that's really very important. For me, I'm a testament to that. Why? Because as you all would have already known, I'm already in another 3 years I'll reach 50. So core, building up the core muscles is really very important, so that I can, because my whole idea of this whole thing journey is I want to be running till I'm 80. So I don't want to stop even when I'm 80. So in order for me to do that, your core muscles you must really work on that, and really build your muscles. And I noticed that you guys have been doing the strength 30 days exercises and all that. You should continue that. Please don't stop that, because that really helps. All the squats, the push-ups, and all those workouts really, really help you a lot. So I've been focusing on that quite a fair bit. That what Ramesh has mentioned also, my train plan is usually right now is one fast run and one slow runs, and in between is all strength exercises. I don't have any other runs actually. So I noticed that my speed is also picking up because of this. It's just that for me, I'm very well aware it's my posture in running. So I'm trying to fix that, because I tend to land too much on my left. So my right hip is, my IT band is hurting. So I'm just trying to correct that. So, those things can come in later. Don't be pressurized by the fact that you are not making it, you can't run at your heart rate now, it's always going up. Just be consistent and do it every day. Another one more thing, I'm not sure whether you've mentioned that or not, Ramesh. I think nutrition is very important. The type of food that you eat and what you eat is very important. You can't expect to for those of you who are doing this to lose weight, you can't expect to lose weight if you don't look at your food, or you do not have a balanced diet. So a balanced diet is very, very important and essential. So it's like, it's the whole works, right? It's the food that you take, your training, and making sure that you sleep well and rest well as well. So I think that's very, very important.
Okay. Thanks, Jerry, for sharing. We also have Muru on the session today. Muru is one of our senior statesmen. He's an extremely strong runner. Also picked up running, I think, not too long ago, 3.5, maybe 4 years, and he's just grown from strength to strength over the years. And I think he's now I think at the most recent marathon that he ran, I think he ran fairly close to just below 3 hours and 30 minutes. A very, very strong runner who's been on this method as well. He's since departed from this somewhat, but he's been through this, and I thought it'd be useful to invite him to share a few things about this method of running as well. Muru?
Yeah, thanks, Ramesh. Hi, good morning, everyone. Just a few thoughts from my side. I mean, the heart rate training definitely suits, I would say, all the beginners who are new to running, and maybe the intermediate runners. Let me put it that way. One more thing, I mean, I was listening to the conversation. One suggestion I would actually suggest is please go for a test before actually you start training under the heart rate training program, because every individual body is different. So we can't simply go with a normal calculation what you see on the internet. So I would strongly recommend to go for a test. There are few places in Singapore where you can take a test. Even you can check the Active SG website, because I do understand they do have this testing. So based on the testing, they will let you know, I mean, what can be your maximum heart rate, and then how you can train. So that is, I mean, very much advisable. Then the second thing is some of the things. Yes, as Thiru mentioned, initially the heart rate training program will slow you down. The initial training program will tend to be very, very slow. Runs will be very slow because they are trying to stabilize your heart rates. But again, everybody knows the calculation like a 220 minus your age. That will be your maximum heart rate, but we don't actually train with the maximum heart rate. So let's say 220 minus 40, 180. From 180, we take only 80%. That should be your maximum heart rate. From there, they will actually define the zones. So there will be, typically there are 5 zones here. So the easy zones will be most of the runs you will be running. And then there are also study zone, and then there are some hard or moderate hard. So what Ramesh mentioned about the speed interval or the speed workout, so that will be mostly the hard pace. So when we say this pace or zones, what maybe I can suggest is like 90% of the maximum heart rate will be for the speed workouts. Then the 80% of your heart rate will be for the tempo runs. Then 60 to 70% for the steady runs. So this is because I do actually observe some of our runners. When you actually go slow, when you do all your runs, very slow runs, yes, it will help to improve your heart rate to stabilize. But if you want to run at a faster pace, you also need to, within the heart rate training program, you also need to have these variations. So like one in a week, if you are doing 2 slow runs, and you also actually do a speed workout, and you also do the tempo run. So this will definitely help. And then apart from that, as Jerry mentioned, the strengthening exercises, that is very, very important. So this all helps. Again, I have also noticed personally myself, the heart rate may go up depending on various reasons. Because the previous night, let's say, if you didn't have a good sleep, the next day morning when you are running, your heart rate will be high. Then maybe some people or some runners have the habit of having a coffee or tea or something in the morning before the run. That will also help the heart rate. So there are many, and then due to your stress level, the heart rate may go up during the runs. So there are various factors affecting your heart rate to go up. There is one more thing is called resting heart rate. Maybe if you are actually going for a run, let's say long run, I would suggest to take the resting heart rate the moment you get up from your bed, just to monitor your resting heart rate. I mean, you have to monitor for a few days or a few weeks, then you will come to know what is your average resting heart rate. Let's say your resting heart rate is 50 beats per minute. Then that's where actually you can calculate your maximum heart rate also. Because when your resting heart rate is at 80 beats per minute, then you can't expect 120 average for your runs. Definitely it will be 140 or 150. So if you are a very seasoned athlete or runner, if your cardio is very healthy, we are functioning very well, usually it will be somewhere around 50 beats per minute. Whereas the youngsters, they will have a higher heart rate, and because usually in the morning itself, their heart rate will be something like 70 to 80. There is nothing right or wrong here, because as I said, every individual is different. So some people will be running at a very, very maximum heart rate, but still they are very comfortable. But what you should watch is, once you complete your workout or running, then it should come down immediately. So if it is not actually coming down, that means so your body needs more time to recover. So that's why another thing is, let's say Saturday morning you are going for a long run, 18K or 20K or 21K. So then if you feel like going for another run on Sunday morning, just to watch it, your resting heart rate. If it is coming back to normal, then you can go for it. Otherwise, just to give some rest to the body. So definitely, one more thing is you need to be patient for this method. So it may take 6 months to improve, or it may take 1 year or more than 1 year. But you have to be really patient with this method. Yes, Ramesh.
Okay, I think that broadly is the sharing. We're just going to have some questions before we wrap up. There was a question from Arvind. I think Arvind's on the session as well. He actually talked about breathing methods. How should one be breathing on your runs? I think maybe I will ask Muru to share. I personally, I think from experience, I used to breathe through my mouth during the runs. I was told that you've got to try to train yourself to actually breathe through your nose when you're starting your runs. And then, you will find that your body slowly, without you even realizing, as your running is getting harder and or where you're running longer and longer, subconsciously you will naturally graduate into breathing through your nose and your mouth as well. As it gets harder and harder, then almost you will find that you will be breathing mainly through your mouth as well. So I think what helped me was actually trying to force myself to breathe through my nose when I'm actually starting my run. And then over time, I found that gradually the body just seems to know when it requires more oxygen. You are able to gradually make the transition between your nose and your mouth. As I said, sometimes you'll be doing both. And when it gets harder and harder, you will naturally go to breathing through your mouth as such. Muru, anything to share on that?
As you said, Ramesh, there is no specific method for this. I mean, it's up to the individual how they actually feel comfortable. But what I do is, I have a method of, let's say if you are doing 10K, the first 4-5K, you will be able to breathe normally. But as you increase the pace, then you will start to actually pain. So that's where what I do is either there is a method called a 2x2 or 4x4. Let's say when I actually land on my right leg, so I count 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth step, what I do is I take a deep breath. At the same time, on the left leg, when I land, so the fourth step, actually exhale. So this is, you can't do it continuously, but it needs a lot of training when you are doing the long runs. So you just inhale and then exhale. So when you are actually doing this right and left leg, so you just keep counting yourself and do it. So I find this is actually helping me, especially for the tempo runs and the long runs.
Muru, do you mind saying that again?
Sorry. What I was saying is, so you can breathe via mouth or a nose, but what happens is when you are increasing the pace or when you are doing a long run, it will drastically or it will become very difficult to breathe via nose.
Right.
Okay. So mostly what people do is they actually breathe in, breathe out via mouth only. Okay. So what I do is after some time, I just force myself to breathe in via nose when I do 4 steps. Okay. So I count alternate. Left, right, left, right, left, right. So when I actually breathe in on my right leg, and then after 4 steps, so I just exhale via mouth. It's like a very hard breathing. Okay, as if you are actually pushing yourself to breathe more. So just keep doing that.
Okay.
So am I making it clear?
Yeah. All right, that's clear.
Okay.
I think Indran had a question. Indran.
Yes. So I tried. Actually, I'm trying to Thursday. I read that it is useful to breathe through your stomach. I mean, not through the chest, as in deflate through the chest, but through the stomach. Is that how it's supposed to be done?
But in the end, while running, let's say it may be possible when you are running at let's say 8-minute pace or 9-minute pace or a slower pace. Let me put it that way. When you are doing at a very slower pace, it may be possible to do that. But when you start to increase your pace, it will be a bit difficult. So that's why, I mean, as I said, you have to force yourself to train and just to breathe via nose.
I think for me that has helped actually. So I haven't done what Muru suggested, every 4 steps and so on. I haven't done that. All I did was to force myself to breathe through the nose when I'm starting my runs. And as I said earlier, having done that, your body, you're sort of subconsciously training your body on the easier parts of your run, or on your easier runs. Almost automatically you are training your body to breathe through your nose, and over time you will find that your body just knows when to switch to breathing, or bringing your mouth in to breathe, so that you can take in more oxygen. Your body just will know over time more than anything else. I mean, that's how it has been for me as such. The only thing I did was to force myself to breathe through my nose at the start of my runs.
Muru, I have one question. Just now you mentioned about the calculating the heart rate based on your resting heart rate.
Yeah.
How do you calculate that?
Okay, we don't actually go by the resting heart rate, but see, when you are actually doing, as I mentioned, the lactate acid test, I mean, you can do it in the lab. So there they will give you what is your maximum heart rate can be, and then what is the rare heart rate for your slower runs, and then easy runs and steady runs. Okay, from there they will also define the resting heart rate should be, but in practical scenarios it may be different. See, for example, one of the runner, I mean, I have come up with his resting heart rate is around 70 beats per minute. Okay, which is not wrong, because his body is able to actually, maybe his body is always on the high side. So when he starts the run, his heart rate also goes up immediately to 150, 160. Okay, so there is a relation here. Whereas, for example, my heart rate, resting heart rate is somewhere around 43 or 44. Okay, and then when I actually run, especially the speed workout, or when I actually do the marathons, my heart rate will go up to 165, 170, and then I am able to sustain that heart rate for the longer period. But again, it depends on the individual, because some people may not be able to sustain that for a longer period, because they may be able to hold on to that pace, let's say 6-minute pace for 2 hours. Then slowly they will start to slow down, because body will start to react. I mean, it will not be able to pump too much of oxygen to the heart, and then they will slow down. So coming back to that, so you just, I would say it would be like 60 beats per minute. That is the usual calculation for the resting heart rate. So you monitor it for a week every day. What is your average resting heart rate? Okay, then you can also do that. Maybe I can send the link for the heart rate calculation. But again, it may not be 100% accurate. It would be still better to go to the lab and do a test.
Okay, brilliant. I think we can take 1 or 2 more questions before we wrap up. Jaga, did you have a question, Jaga? Jaga, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Mouse over your screen.
Okay.
And you'll
Whilst
see
we are
bottom left hand side, you'll see a mute button. Unmute it.
Yeah. Okay, Jaga. Jagat, you can speak now.
Oh.
Okay, yeah. You are unmuted, but I think there's something wrong with your microphone. Okay, does anyone else have any other questions? Whilst we wait for Jagat to...
I got one, Brother Ramesh.
I
was just curious, the heart rate calculation you were mentioning,
yes,
180, is that derived for?
No, 220 minus your age.
Okay, so no, hang on. So there are a number of ways of calculating it. Again, as Muru said earlier, what we are sharing are rough and ready formulas. If you want to actually get your maximum heart rate, you need to go and get it checked at a lab where you are running on a treadmill. We call it a lactic threshold test. But if you don't want to do that and you just want to have a sort of a rough estimate as to the zone that you should be running at, there are two ways of doing it. One is what Muru suggested, the formula that he shared, which is out there in the literature as well, which is 220 minus your age. That gives you your maximum heart rate. And from there, 60 to 70% is the zone that you should be looking to be running at for most of your runs. What I shared earlier was another formula for arriving at that zone directly. So instead of 220 minus 180 and applying a 60 to 70%, you do 180 minus your age. You then get the upper limit of the zone as such. And then if you minus 10, you've got a rough zone, which you can roughly use as a guide and a gauge for your runs. Again, there are some factors that you have to apply, which may tweak the numbers somewhat. But broadly, I think if you're going to wait for some time before you actually go and get the test done at a lab, my own sense is you won't go wrong if you work off this idea, this rough formula for the time being as such. So either 220 minus your age, 60 to 70% of that number, which is that top end of the zone, or 180 minus your age, top end of your zone minus 10, the lower end of your zone as such.
All right, thanks.
So, sorry, Ramesh, just one more clarification. Just now, Indran was asking the resting heart rate, how that is done. So basically, I mean, it depends on the desired, the training effect that you want to put in. Let's say you are actually starting now as a beginner or intermediate, and then you want to have something like a 60% or 70% of your training effort. Okay, that means you don't want to go like a 80 or 90. So the resting heart rate, how does it help us? Based on your age, let's say, take an example of 40 years old, and then the resting heart rate is somewhere around 60 beats per minute. So then this will actually give you the calculation, the maximum heart rate for 60% or 70%. Okay, so that's the relationship I was talking about, the resting heart rate and the maximum heart rate.
Okay, I think we've crossed an hour for the session. I think we're going to wrap up. I think the sharing that we have had today, hopefully it piques your interest, it gets you interested about learning more about this particular topic. As I said, we're all no experts. We're just sharing from experiences, from having tried this method out. From my experience, it has worked. It has made me be able to endure longer runs comfortably. As Muru said, ultimately, if you're looking in the long run to become a much faster runner, then you've got to tweak this a little bit, work in speed workouts, tempo runs as such. but it's a great way to develop your aerobic engine and base to be able to go at your runs more comfortably, whilst also reducing the risk of injury. All right, so hopefully this discussion we've had has raised some awareness, and you all start reading more about this. And once the circuit breaker measures are lifted, you'll book an appointment to go and have your heart rate zones charted out for you as well. So that's broadly it. I think I'll have any of the admins have a final say before we wrap up. This is the first of a number of sessions. That there's a lot to talk about when it comes to running, how to pick the right running shoe. That's perhaps a topic for another day. Running form as well. That's something that we could discuss over the next few sessions as well. The idea is to try and gather, every couple of weeks to talk about something running related. And hopefully this has kicked things off nicely for us. Vijay?
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you, the admins, and thanks to everyone who have actually participated on this session. I believe there's much of value that has been actually shared in this inputs from every single individual who has been actually sharing in regards to the heart rate training. And I believe many of you are already excited to embark on this particular heart rate training. I saw on the main chat. So wishing you all the best. Please keep those questions coming in on the main chat, on the Facebook. So that's where we can actually get engaged with one another and share more on how we are actually going to improve on our heart rate training. So with that said, I would like to actually wrap up this particular session and give the remaining of the super long weekend back to you guys. Have a great day. Enjoy the heat. It's totally crazy, man, right? And rest well and stay safe and stay healthy from Tarumar Runners and that.
Okay. Cheers, guys. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.